Hi, everyone, and welcome to the PropTech Ramble. We are back, but with a slight change this time, in that we are live and we'll be streaming live for every session moving forward. Just to do some housekeeping, just so you guys are aware, this podcast will be live bi-weekly. So please sign up to all the future ones as well. And we'll be also having special guests join us for the future podcasts as well as today. If you have any questions, feel free to submit your questions. We know that some people have submitted questions beforehand. All of the future podcasts, you can submit questions ahead of time as well. And you can also submit them live on air and we will get them answered for you. Today we have myself, I'm Tessema, I'm your host. You also have my co-host, Micheal Grant, who's the COO of Metricus. And we also have a special guest today, who is Uwe Klatt. He is the VP of Sales for Disruptive Technologies. Now, if anyone's a hardware enthusiast or has an interest within Internet of Things, which I trust you all do, or connected devices, would have definitely come across Disruptive Technologies. They're the makers of the world's smallest wireless sensors. So very slick, very sexy. That's also the team at DT, but they're hardware as well. So thank you so much for being here, Uwe. Welcome. How are you?
Thank you. I'm very well, Megs. Thanks very much. Yeah, quite excited to be a part of this first live session with a PropTech Ramble. So great.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for joining us. We're incredibly excited to have you. Just so everybody knows today's topic, so we'll be covering a range of different topics for future podcasts as well. Today is focused around sustainability, which is, I guess, high on the agenda within our industry. We'll also be covering topics around the smart building and how connected devices can help ESG initiatives. So I can kickstart the session with the first question. So the first one is sustainability a buzzword within our industry?
Uwe, do you want to take the first part of that?
Sure, absolutely. And hey, Micheal.
Hey, mate.
Great to be on. So look, sustainability a buzzword? Definitely not. I think what's going on doesn't just span the built environment or properties. It spans everyone. It spans my children. Speaking to the younger generation, speaking to customers as well. I think it's all driven obviously by large politics as well. We got the Paris Climate Accord. We got governments around the world putting that into legislation. We got the UK's 10-point plan for the green industrial revolution going on. So all of that is driving people's agendas. I see personally in job interviews, people ask me, is your business, is DT sustainable? So no, it's not a buzzword. I can also see from a PropTech and property perspective, I see that investors start looking at this. I see that investors try to green up their portfolios, try to put tech in as well to make that happen. So very much no, it's not a buzzword. No, it's driving any single conversation I have pretty much.
Yeah, and I think a few years ago it probably was, and there's a term called greenwashing, which is you talk about sustainability but you don't actually do it. But the world is changing. People. Awareness is growing about sustainability. Investors are changing, as you mentioned, Uwe. Data and analytics are evolving, and people need to produce data. The world, United Nations has their 17, sustainable development goals. This is not a buzzword. It's not going away. Like you, we're seeing a lot of people come to us, and the first port of call is actually, how do you help us with sustainability or ESG?
I also see, Micheal, how conversations change. You may have had a running customer conversation already about something completely different. Talking in retail about maybe their cold storage, and then the conversation changes and looks at the whole property and energy spend, and all of a sudden we're in the middle of a sustainability conversation. So no, it's very much top of mind.
Yeah, we've gone from before the pandemic talking about occupancy and capacity and indoor air quality. We spoke to one of the world's largest property owners about a month ago, probably 6 weeks ago now. And the conversation was, only talk to me about indoor air quality and ESG. That's it. We know you do other things, but at the moment, that's all we want to talk about. So it's not going away, and actually it's getting bigger and bigger. So
yeah. So we've mentioned ESG a few times already, and it's such a big topic. A lot of companies and individuals who want to get involved can feel that it's slightly overwhelming. So the question is essentially, what would be your advice for companies that are looking to get into ESG, and what would be their first port of call?
I think you've got to pick where you start. So, environmental, social governance. The large real estate owner we were talking to, theirs was all about indoor air quality, and theirs was ensuring that all of the tenants in their buildings know that they're coming into a healthy building. So you can't, you can't try and boil the ocean. It's a saying I use a lot, but choosing one part and starting with that, whether it's environmental or the social piece, you've got to start somewhere. Don't try and do the whole thing at once, but it depends on the priorities of your business. A lot of people, I think, post-pandemic, it will be about the people. So whether it's about your internal teams, or whether you're a landlord and you're trying to attract new tenants to a building, or reassure your current tenants that you have a healthy and safe building, it's picking a place and choosing a starting point, and then again going on a journey. It's not an overnight thing. You can't just have ESG overnight. So you've got to pick the most important place to start for yourself, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that, Michael. And to your point, finding where to start. I think what's interesting about ESG is it's not so much it's not at the start a KPI driven discussion, right? It's a softer discussion. Be a sustainable business. Do you value your employees? So I think you got to go and make it yours. And we at DT have looked at this as well. And it's interesting you mentioned the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. We have taken those actually and looked into each one and see what does it mean to the company. Obviously, some of them are more from a global perspective, but some are very applicable. So we've picked good health and well-being is something that is applicable to us both. The way we work internally, but then also the way we sell our products. So it has multiple dimensions. It helps us, get our sales message across as well, right? Responsible consumption, that really drives the way we manufacture. We try and avoid waste all over, including our own products. So the sustainability goals, the UN's goals, are really helpful in this discussion.
Yeah, that's a good point. Very good point.
Yeah, indeed. So technology is definitely helping, but what we tend to find, and one of the questions here as well, is there are concerns around technology being adopted and then it becomes obsolete. So it's one of the barriers that we have to come across as well. And the question here is, are they right to be concerned? I'm sure we all know. And what could be done to mitigate these concerns?
That's one. No, mate, one for you to start with, given you work for a manufacturer of hardware. We're a software company, so you should probably start this one off, mate.
You could see me itching answering that one, right? So yeah, no, absolutely. No. I think, first of all, we're under no illusion that tech is a very fast-moving area, right? So that includes our sensors. We think we're cutting edge, but we're under no illusion that 5 years from now something completely different will be around, from us as well, but from others too. So there's this factor that I think you can't approach this by saying, "Hey, we'll wait for tech that lasts forever," because there won't be tech that lasts forever. I think there's a point to be made about getting started. We were talking about sustainability earlier. You can't wait forever. You have to start gathering data that can help inform you about how sustainable your business is, how sustainable your properties are, and then it's really a case of using what's there today and complementing that. And to us as an industry, obviously that means we also need to work together with other tech, other vendors coming in from left and right and make this one, right? So, but you can't wait around, I think.
No, you can't. And tech that's redundant. So it's an interesting one because on a podcast I was on recently, someone asked me the same thing about tech, and it was people put tech in for tech's sake. Now, personally, I've got my own views, and this is just my own opinion about smart buildings, is stuff that helps you open and close the curtains. That is tech that you may not be using and may not see any value from after a month or 2 or 3 months, because is it actually helping with driving down costs or driving operational efficiencies like the DT sensors do, like lots of other sensors do in the market? Again, it's like the ESG sustainability part. Where do you start? Start with where you have operating costs that you would like to reduce, whether that's, you know, the smart cleaning, whether it's cold storage, whether it's occupancy and capacity, whether it's energy monitoring. Starting at that point, you will then drive value and ROI out of the tech, and actually, you know, that won't go away. The more operational efficiencies you make, the more data you have from the sensors, the more value it drives. So it's not a fad, you know. It's not like a remote control car at home where you get it, you drive it for a few weeks, and then you get bored and you want the helicopter, and then you want something else. It's the right tech will last. And as Uwe said, you might have a sensor in now that helps you do occupancy monitoring, and in 2 or 3 years there will be a completely different sensor that will be smaller, you know, more adaptive. You can move it around. So, but you've got to start somewhere. But just pick the right kit. Who really cares about opening and closing curtains and you know, things like that? Pick the right kit.
Yeah.
Oh, that's absolutely, you know, to that point, Micheal, as well. I think one thing that we have seen certainly over the last couple of years is, the perception of tech has changed as well from this, let's go and try some, as you alluded to, right? Let's just make this building smart, put some sensors in and start looking. I think that is to a degree going away. And people now, we like to call this hyper-focused in terms of our sensor applications as well. People look for very concrete answers. You know, how can I optimize my energy spend in this building? You know, and how do I go about it? Where do I need to measure? It's the dialogue now, as opposed to let's put some sensors in and find out something. So I really agree with that.
Yeah, I do think, a few years ago, it was definitely a matter of putting sensors in, and it was a checklist that they had to kind of essentially go through. But right now, it's how is it ROI driven, as you've just mentioned. So, I definitely agree. Get the right sensors in place, and these sensors are future proofed as well, and they're constantly innovating. Like DT are constantly innovating as well within their own sensors. So. Choose the right partner. Is the way. So the next one that we have here is, have you seen a demand for sensor technology as a result? Sorry, let me say that again. Have you seen a demand for smart technology change as a result of the pandemic?
Yes. In short, yes.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
So probably like DT, but prior to COVID, everyone was flush with cash. Everyone was in the office. Projects were all going. People were happy. Now, people we'd spoken to 6-9 months ago now contacting us saying, right, we need a back to the office solution. Can you talk to us about Metricus and how you can help us with understanding what's going on in our building? COVID back to work. We're already doing that for a large US investment bank, but people now really need to start to get the data out of their buildings. Whether it's understanding the space, understanding cost efficiency, or seeing how many people are in a space, I should say, and the indoor air quality piece, it's accelerated hugely for us. It was a nice to have beforehand, and now it's gone to a must have. And if you don't have it, why not? That's kind of what's happened for us.
Yeah. Definitely, to your point there, Micheal, from nice to have to necessity, we've countless examples of that. It's it is a lot of the time during the lockdown, it was about protecting your assets, because essentially people could not be there. So how do you make sure that your property is okay? How do you make sure that maybe maybe you're a restaurant chain and have goods in the freezers? What do? Right?
Yeah.
You can't go out there. So you need to put some degree of monitoring in place to facilitate that. And while we had all these, the technology was around previously, right? But you did have people. So if all failed, you could send people and just do a 3 times a day inspection. But that wasn't possible. So now people really started to care about what's there in terms of tech and put that in much more quickly. So we've seen our largest to date sensor deployments in the course of the pandemic. So it's been, I'm not proud to say that in a way, but it's been a driver to the business. And on the flip side, it really shows how we were able to help as well in this situation. So I think it's definitely changed things.
I think that's a key one, because we've had the same thing, is that it's a very good point, Uwe. You could just send someone there and go and take a reading or go and look at the site or do something. A lot of people have realized that when there's no one in the building, they have no access to data. So, but there's an interesting stat. I think it's from National Grid or someone. It was in the Telegraph or something the other week. One of our team found it. Although there's hardly anyone in the offices, energy usage has only dropped by 10% in London in the commercial real estate space. So that means they're still using 90% of the energy. Yes. Now, some of that is required to run the HVAC and the heating and cooling systems, and you need to test for Legionella, and you need to do these types of things. But with more data and more connectivity, surely there is more electricity reduction that can be done, right? 90%. I mean, the building behind me, although I've got a bit of a background, I think, but the building behind me, those lights are on all day, every day. That's a brand new building. They don't need to be on every day. So, having data when you can't get to site is vital. Now, it was, like you say, beforehand, you could just send someone to site. Now you have to have data. And if you have no data, you're blind. So it has accelerated.
And I think the water treatment example there, that's another area that was really highlighted through COVID. With no people in the building, water gets, remains stagnant, doesn't get moved, Legionella risk appears.
Yes.
So again, previously, maybe it was about operational efficiencies, and our innovative partners, would then have put systems in place to monitor the usage of your water systems and sort of drive down labor spend. But now it's all about this is about health and safety. So it's a necessity, right? And that's changed.
It also, just to bring it back to the previous question in terms of sensor technology becoming obsolete, I think this does answer that as well, in the sense of if you are partnered with the right company, they can also repurpose their technology, like Micheal said, or for us in particular, rather than understanding space utilization as in, are we underutilized? It's more around, well, are we being safe for the space? Are we adhering to the social guidelines, as social distancing guidelines as well? So it's about choosing that partner that can also help you through these tough times. The next question is for you, Uwe, in particular. So it's around, so DT. I've mentioned you guys are the makers behind the world's smallest wireless sensor. You've also just released the industrial temperature sensor, which is fantastic. What we wanted to know was what's next. What's next? Anything exciting that you kind of wanted to share with our viewers and listeners?
Well, thanks for that question. Yeah, that's great. No, so as you said, Max, I mean, we make the smallest wireless sensors, and we're going to keep doing that. Whereas today, we do things like temperature, humidity. There are water detectors. You can expect there will be more sensor types around in a year's time, or before summer, really. So we look into things that will fit in this form factor, right? So it needs to remain small. that sort of limits the number of things you can do on the one side. So vibration certainly is one area that we will look into. We've had lots and lots of requests. Also goes back to the discussion we had previously around what can be monitored around properties. Is my air handling unit performing well? Does it approach maintenance, or will it need maintenance soon? Will it break down? What about my pumps? Tilt sensing is another area we look into, and then very much driven by our previous point of sustainability. What we are evaluating at the minute is also CT type current and power sensing, right? So all of these things sort of lend themselves well to the way we design sensors. But then to our previous point as well, investing in tech today, what does that mean regarding tech that's coming in? We also want to be inclusive. So we're looking at options for other sensor vendors to use our technology that enables this superior lifetime. Our sensors last 15 years. To make that available to other sensor vendors could be another avenue that we'd like to explore.
I think we're definitely looking forward to that for sure. Thank you so much. So the next one's actually a very interesting question. It's what are the most common false positives from IoT sensors, if any, and how would you go about mitigating them?
Well, it's an interesting one. Some sensors are just not accurate, so that doesn't help. But the ones that are,
don't buy them.
the ones that are, if you wrap rules around your sensors. So, but by that I mean, if you've got a vibration sensor on a fan coil unit, so we use an example Uwe talked about, fan coil units and some of the things that might come out of DT is, if you've got a fan coil unit and it vibrates a little bit out of its hertz range for a few seconds, you don't want an alert for that, and you don't want to send someone to go and have a look, because by the time they get there, there's no issue. But if it's vibrating at a certain hertz for more than a minute or 2 minutes, whatever you need to set as your time threshold for it, then you send somebody there. So that's how you can reduce false positives. You need a set of rules, and you need a set of parameters so that you don't send people to address something that it was just a blip rather than a real fault or a real issue. So that's important. That's probably one of the best ways to remove false positives, I think, if you can set boundaries and parameters, whether it's time-based or near-field presence-based and things like that, whether it's a PIR, whether it's an occupancy sensor, whether it's a vibration sensor, whether it's a door open close sensor about timing how long the door's open. False positives can be easily removed if you've got the right and accurate sensors and the right platform behind it.
I think it really, Michael, to that point, it really demonstrates how sensor technology, IoT, if you will, and then analytics or AI as well are growing together. Because why do we partner with Metricus? Because we realize, we're great at delivering accurate data, but the data itself needs to be analyzed and it needs to become actionable and really mean something. And that is where Metricus comes in with analytics, and that needs to be accurate as well. And false positives in that sense get eliminated on the analytics level. Right, so that's why we have this partnership.
Yeah, agreed.
We actually have a question that has been submitted. So essentially goes, this person's Robert Simpson, biggest concern with sensors and IoT in general is all of the different walled gardens of hardware and software. I've resisted moving to IoT solutions because I do not want to buy into a walled garden like Amazon Prime, Amazon Home, and things going obsolete and unsupported makes me concerned as well. So how, not a serious question, but how would you go about dealing with hardware and software that can lead to, I guess, vendor lock-in or walled gardens?
Yeah, I was just talking about vendor lock-in on a meeting prior to this one, literally 15 minutes before this one. Meg, you were on the same call. So an open platform, gone are the days where you used to have your own, the hardware and the software. So BMS is a prime example of this. Whether it was Siemens, Schneider, Trend, the BMS, was a dark art and you're all locked in. People don't want that anymore. And Robert, you're 100% right. You don't want to be locked in. So looking at a partner, whether it's Metricus or someone else, an open API where you can take DT data, where you can take density data, VergeSense, Point Grab, whoever's it is, you can take all of that data and put it into another platform. We have customers that don't use the Metricus front end for everything. An example is a company that uses us for energy. They take a straight API feed out and they put it into another platform. So I agree with you. You shouldn't be locked in. There shouldn't be vendor lock-in. It should all be open API, and you should be able to use it whichever way you need it, whether it's in a native platform, whether it's in a third-party platform, or you just want to extract it as a CSV to put it into your own database and give it to your own, data scientists. We're moving away from that, and interestingly, the PropTech and IoT industry is less mature than a lot of other industries. Uwe and I have known each other for many years. We were in the video industry many, many years ago. That went from proprietary to standardized and open because everyone worked out they'd make more money together by opening everything up than keeping it closed. So it's already happening. Mobile phones were the same, BMS were the same, Schneider and Honeywell. Honeywell's a great example of being open now. They'll happily connect any sensors into their building management system, whether it's a DT sensor, whether it's another, you can put that in as a native BACnet object. So yeah, you're probably right a few years ago, but there are also still some hardware and software vendors that will try and lock you in, but just avoid that and look at partners like DT or the others that are open to send the data to any platform.
So, my point here would be fully agree with what you say there, Micheal. So openness is key. Open APIs are the vehicle. Actually, one of the reasons why we're called Disruptive Technologies, people have been asking us why that name. We're disrupting the IoT market, and one of the big barriers was the fact that many sensor solutions sort of had this closed environment that you couldn't really open up. So from the outset, we said, our data needs to be really easy to get to, really easy. And so, in our case, it's just, plugging that cloud connector in and you get your data via open APIs, right? Yeah. So that has to be really at the center of everything you choose as well. Really agree with that, what Robert asked there as well.
Really good question. Something that comes up, like Micheal just said, it was a topic that just came up in our call earlier today as well. We do have a couple more questions that have been put forward. So this one is, what are the biggest hurdles that PropTech faces as an industry? And additionally, how have priorities of what companies want have changed over the last 12 to 18 months? So yeah, first question, what are the biggest hurdles in the PropTech industry?
I think it is, let's go back to APIs that we're just talking about. APIs, this is one of my favorite sayings, APIs are like toothbrushes. Everyone has their own, but nobody wants to use anyone else's. So, and APIs are the same. There are companies like Disruptive. There's another company coming out of Sweden that are looking to make a gateway, whether it's for LoRa sensors or others, to aggregate multiple sensors from multiple companies into one gateway, because we have some customers with 7 different sensor companies providing a solution. We provide the single pane of glass, but when you have to have multiple gateways for multiple sensors, it can start to get a bit wildly, a bit out of control, or there's just lots of kit to be required. So I think one of the things is everyone's starting to play together, funneling, whether it's one LoRa gateway or one Wi-Fi gateway or a Bluetooth gateway or Sigfox or whatever it might be, everyone coming through one gateway and funneling through a single API, because multiple APIs for customers can sometimes be a pain, especially if they want to take the data directly. So I think it's people starting to play together nicely and not worrying about using someone else's API, because they're not actually like toothbrushes. So
it is Exactly. But you know, in my view, in addition to what you mentioned, Micheal, in my view, the biggest hurdle to PropTech, the sort of the name gives us a clue already. PropTech, it's so unfocused, right? It's back to the point that we made initially about people just putting sensors somewhere because it needs to be a smart building. That to me is PropTech. So I really, you know, I think the term is even implying that. But what's happening today and what will help PropTech along is focus. So really, what are you trying to achieve? Back to that point, is it energy efficiency? What exactly are you trying to achieve? Is it a better is it better service operations, or is it limiting breakdown costs for some of your components? So focus is one. So I think it's lack of focus that's been in the way for the rollout of PropTech, and not really looking at a broad range of sensors, but specific applications. In a way, also commoditizing sensor technology and analytics as well was a very specific question to be solved. That's one. And the other one to me is related, and that's responsibility, right? So who's taking responsibility for driving energy efficiency into the buildings? So who's that precisely, right? Is it maybe the occupier who's stepping up and saying, well, we're going to do this initiative now, and we're going to drive down our energy cost? Or is it a service provider offering that as a service? Or is it even maybe the landlord or the investor looking after these things, which is a recent trend where investors are taking more responsibility as well. So I think it's these things as well, which are more into the modeling of the business around it that have been in the way.
Yeah, I definitely agree on the focus part. So yeah, for sure. There is actually the follow-up question on the back of that, which was additionally, how have priorities of what companies want to see have changed over the last 12 to 18 months? So have you guys seen a shift from in terms of priorities?
We have, but again, it depends on who you're talking to. So we were talking with a large US investment bank prior to lockdown about smart buildings, and we were going to start in a different place with them. It was about energy monitoring and sustainability. Then during lockdown, it became a COVID back to work campaign. So that was ensuring that there weren't too many people in the reception area on each floor. And we put alerts in and rules in that people got messages if they got close or then when they breached. A lot of smart cleaning has come up all of a sudden. We were talking about it beforehand, but a lot of that has come up. And then obviously the indoor air quality, because of COVID, everyone's become an indoor air quality expert. Francesca, the CEO of Air Rated, often says, you took a glass of water and it was full of dirt, you wouldn't drink it. But the air you breathe, you didn't think about it prior to COVID. But now everyone knows that COVID floats on the back of dust. So is the air quality, is that good? So things have definitely changed. Things have accelerated. But for us, it's the COVID back to work piece and the smart cleaning and a few other bits and pieces that have accelerated and changed.
I think COVID definitely has been a driver. And then to me, looking at the last couple of years or a year and a half, energy spend reduction is definitely higher up on, as a topic in my discussions. That's probably driven by the things we discussed initially around sustainability too.
Yeah. Megs, I think we've got a few more questions in. I think
we do have a few more questions. Yeah. So the question from Nika is thoughts on the business model. So CapEx buy, depreciate, or OpEx rent, get tech refresh, innovate with different sensors, new business model over time. So what's your thoughts? What would be the ideal way to go forward?
It depends on the customer, I think, as well. So
I agree.
Some customers, we have some public sector customers who have to do everything CapEx. They can't do an OpEx model. So you buy everything up front. Metricus, we offer CapEx or OpEx. It depends on what you want to do and how you want to spread the costs. You can wrap this disruptive kit up with our data services and just pay it monthly. The tech refresh bit is an interesting one. Some companies are now offering tech refresh if you do rent, some don't. So renting it forever may end up costing you more, but if you don't get a tech refresh, is there any real value in doing that? But if you just want to spread the cost as an OpEx cost over 3 to 5 years, then that does make sense as well. I think that it's flexibility on the hardware manufacturer, and also depends on the customer and what their procurement and finances will allow them to do. Metricus is obviously monthly, software as a service, but it depends on the hardware partner. I think.
Yeah, so similar here, Michael. I think we've learned over the years that we need to offer more in terms of CapEx models. Initially, we set out and thought everything was going to be OpEx, and everyone would want that, but that's not what happens in reality. A bit of learning here.
We also have a couple more questions. Agree on the gateway and APIs, so fantastic. What about the data and info security side of things, especially when people are starting to interact with PropTech across the built environment? Where would you want to start, Michael?
I can start, but it's one of the reasons we work with DT. We've worked with them for 5 years now. Data is encrypted and in transit and at rest, and that's hugely important, especially when you're talking about, we've got DT sensors in some data centers. You don't want to be able to spoof data in a data center and say it's 21 degrees when actually it's 35 and kit starts to fail. So security is paramount. Working with partners that can prove to you that they've got, AES encryption, secure encryption at rest and in transit is hugely important, and there are lots of sensors out there that do. So that's probably the most important part. Then, if you're talking about platform, should be pen tested every year and externally third-party pen tested. The data in that platform should also be encrypted, and there should only be a few people that have access. Having ISO certifications attached to your business around security information, that should also be something you look at as well. It's not hard these days to have security, and everyone just expects it. If you're looking at a hardware provider that can't actually give you hard, fast facts about how they encrypt their data and how secure it is, then I would think twice about maybe jumping into bed with them or attaching their sensors to your network.
Yeah. Not much to add, but end-to-end security is important as well. Just be sure that your data is not intercepted anywhere. Yes. So, but really, I think you said it all, Michael.
Awesome. I think that wraps up the questions. I'm just going to have a quick look to see if there's any more that we haven't answered. No. That seems to be about all of them. I've checked all the forums. Okay, fantastic. Thank you, everyone. There is one thing I wanted just to state before we drop off. We have an exciting announcement from Metricus side. We are launching a competition. So whereby if you sign up and ask a question for the next PropTech Ramble podcast, you are in line to win an asset tracking solution. So by all means, sign up, submit a question. The winner will be announced on the next PropTech Ramble, which is scheduled for the 31st of March. And you have to be in it to win it. So please sign up, and we look forward to seeing you all there. For now, thank you so much, Uwe Klatt. Really appreciate your input today. Really insightful as well, as always. So thank you so much. And Michael, thank you too.
Yeah, no problem, Uwe.
Thank you both.
Yeah, good to see you, mate. We'll catch up with you soon, buddy.
Been a pleasure. Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Max.
Take care, mate.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
Cheers.
Bye.